Welcome to this week's Closing the Distance. Hi, I'm Matt Moore. On today's show, it's a good one. We're going to tackle the subject of fixed broadheads versus mechanical broadheads. We're going to give you all the information so you can decide on which product is the best for your bow setup. It's a great show. Let's get started.
Closing the Distance is brought to you by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. Treason, don't just blend, become. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape. Coming up, information on fixed broadheads versus mechanical broadheads. Which is best for you? We'll give you those answers. Closing the Distance, we'll be right back. Get a head start on your next trophy buck. Order stand placement advanced techniques today at Closing the Distance. Closing the Distance is made possible by Tree Limb Quivers. There's only one tree limb quiver. Sword sights, sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies, taking the elusive out of wildlife. The Stage Deer Attractant, finally, a synthetic scent that works. Matthews Archery. And by the amazing Luminoc. Can your arrow not do this?
Today on Closing the Distance, we're going to tackle the subject of fixed broadheads versus mechanical broadheads. It's a crazy topic. I mean, there's a lot of controversy, a lot of different opinions on the subject. And on today's show, I'm going to do my best to give you the facts. And these facts are based off of 20 plus years of video and bow hunts. And so many of these bow hunts, or all the bow hunts, I know the bow, the arrow, the broadhead combination. I have a lot of staff guys, so I've got to edit and look at a lot of different shots to where I know the shot placement, I know the end result, and I know what worked. And there's a lot of different really cool broadhead tests that you can watch on the market, and I've watched so many of them, and I really like them, because anytime I get a chance to learn to pick up something new on a different product or a new design, I want that information. I want that information to help me in the field. And this entire episode is about that. I'm going to do my best to give you all the information based off fact that I've seen in the field. And how this started out was last year I edited a shot video, a highlight video to send to our sponsor Luminoc, with all the Luminocs shining and glowing and looking good. And I sent it out, so I was going to post it on our social media, and it wasn't long, we had over 1 million views on this shot video, and so many comments and so many shares, and it was really neat seeing all the comments. And one of my staff guys had sent me a text message, and he watched the video. He said, "Matt, it's really easy to see which one of those shots was a fixed head and which one was mechanical." So it got me to thinking, was he right? So I watched him again, knowing that I knew what it was. I knew which broadhead was used on each one of these shots. And I had some comments, some of the viewers said the same thing. It's easy to see which one's mechanical versus fixed. So watching this video again, it got me to thinking, I wanted to give you information on which one of these heads or which one works best for your bow setup, and just for one reason only. I want you to recover your deer. I wanted to give you this information so it aids you into helping you find your deer. The biggest issue that I see that we face with fixed heads versus mechanical heads is that, simply put, your bow is not tuned. And there's one easy step that you can do to see if your bow is tuned, and it's something you can do it today. This is what you do, and this is what I've learned over the 20 plus years of filming. I owned a bow shop for a long time, so I've tuned bows, and I've had to tune bows so that your fixed head would fly like a field point. Way back when, there was no such thing as a mechanical broadhead. So I learned the tuning process before there was such a thing as a mechanical head. And the easiest way that I found out to see if your bow is tuned is to go out there and say stand at 15 yards, 20 yards, stand where you know your comfort zone is, stand where you know you can hit the bullseye, stand at a distance where you know that you can hit, say, a tennis ball and shoot your field point. And go get that same arrow that you know flies good and screw on a fixed head. A fixed head that's really good to use for this tuning is that old original Muzzy, that item number 225. One thing that I like about using that original Muzzy head for a broadhead test is that it comes with a practice blade. And the practice blade serves two purposes. First of all, that practice blade will fly like the regular sharp heads that come in the box. But Since they're practice blades, they're not going to tear your target up. And since they're practice blades, it's easier on you. You don't have to worry about getting your fingers cut or cutting your string on your bow. So what I like to do, I shoot the field point first, and I like that muzzy head for practice, and I'll see if that muzzy practice point, that fixed head, will fly the same as my field points. And if it does, I'm okay. And if it doesn't, there's things that you can do to get your bow in tune. And the easiest thing to do, you can go to a pro shop and see if they will help you broadhead tune your bow. Most of the time, and I'm saying most of the time, probably 95% of the time, you're not gonna find a bow shop out there that even knows what you're even talking about. You can email me here at Closing the Distance, and I'll send you our broadhead tuning manual. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. And when you're doing this tuning process, you may have to adjust your knock maybe a 1/16 of an inch. You may have to turn your knock up or down, or adjust your loop. Not even so much as even 1/4 of an inch, sometimes an 1/8 of an inch. And sometimes on this tuning process, you may have to adjust your limbs. You may have to crank down 1/2 of a turn, or 1 pound or 2 pounds. And it's unbelievable, just these small minor details of tuning your bow for a fixed head. It's unbelievable how much more accurate you'll be, how much more penetration you'll get. Even if you plan on shooting a traditional mechanical head or expandable head, it's unbelievable how much better performance you'll get if you decide just to go ahead and broadhead tune your bow.
After the break, we'll dive deeper into the broadhead topic, and later on, we'll reveal who has the best broadhead on the market. We'll be right back. Want more from Closing the Distance? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Closing the Distance is brought to you by Ozonics, undetectable, undeniable. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. Treason, don't just blend, become. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape.
Welcome back to Closing the Distance. On today's show, we're giving you the differences between fixed broadheads versus mechanical broadheads. And let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this, and let me show you the differences. Let me tell you the differences in these type of broadheads. Let's start out with a fixed head. You know, most of these fixed heads, they come from about a 1 inch cutting surface up to maybe 1 inch and 1/8, or even some 1 inch and 3/16. You know, they can be either 2 blades or 3 blades, or some even 4 blades. You know, I've even seen some, or even tested some that were 6 blade models. But you know, I really don't recommend anything over a 3 blade. These 4 blade pluses, I mean, they're really hard to tune. And to be honest with you, they're not really necessary. All fixed heads are cut on contact with some type of razor tip or sharp pointed tip. Avoid those chiseled or maybe those blunted or saw tip blades. I've never had them to tune well or cut well at all. Some of those really small compact heads, some of those small heads that are just an inch cut, they fly really well and they're super sharp. The advantages of having a fixed head are the replacement blades, but you need to know how to check those ferrules for straightness. You got to see if those ferrules spin well, because a lot of times if you do hit bone, or if you hit ribs, or you hit the opposite side shoulder, those ferrules will have a tendency to bend. It's really easy to get an arrow spinner tool, and you know, there's a lot of really good fixed heads on the market. If you're a fan of fixed heads, you may want to check out the fixed head designs that are beveled. These bevel designs are always 2-bladed heads, and they're only sharp on one side of each blade. Most of the beveled heads that you see on the market, they have about a 40-degree angle on the blades, which causes that broadhead to rotate in flight, which stabilizes the front of the arrow. And this extra rotation, this extra spinning, leads to better accuracy. You know, that rotation, it continues on impact and causes some of the most unbelievable damage that I've ever seen. But you know, these heads, they're usually just a little bit more expensive than those traditional fixed heads. You have to resharpen them after each shot, but that's kind of easy. It's not really complicated. I personally have killed deer and hogs with several different models or several different brands of beveled heads that you see on the market. There's the Hardaway. It's a really good bevel design. Strickland Archery makes one that's really popular. It's called the Helix. I've killed deer with the Bishop, and they make a really good one-piece bevel. And the Bishop is probably the toughest one that I've ever used. And it's a one-piece bevel head, but you know, they're all good. But it all goes back to being able to tune your bow. These beveled heads, I don't recommend them for a novice bow hunter. These bevel heads to me are for the more experienced bow hunter who understands shot placement, who understands bow tuning. And for sure, it's for those bow hunters who have a little bit more patience, because you do have to sharpen these heads. And the only thing that I've seen about these heads is you're not going to destroy them. The only way that you're going to mess one up is if you lose one. You know, if you bow hunt, you're in the minority if you've never tried a mechanical or an expandable head. You know, sometimes in this test, I may use the word mechanical or expandable interchangeably, but I'm talking about the same thing. You know, these mechanical heads, they come in all shapes and all sizes and all cutting surface areas. I mean, you name it, you know, it's been designed and it's on the market. I've tested more of these heads than I can remember. You know, the advantages of most of these heads is that they fly like a field point. But you know, that statement, flying like a field point, that's what gets a lot of bow hunters in trouble. You know, you read on these packages, field point accuracy, no tuning required, massive entry wounds, massive wound channels. You know, all these statements can give a bow hunter a false sense of hope. And this false sense of hope is that no bow tuning is required if you shoot or if you buy a mechanical head. You know, even if you're going to use a mechanical head, I highly recommend that you go out and tune your bow to shoot fixed heads first. Even if you're not going to hunt with a fixed head, what this happens is that it will help your mechanical head perform so much better because your arrow flight is so much better. You don't lose as much energy when that arrow hits the animal. A big disadvantage of using a mechanical head is that most of these manufacturers don't offer replacement blades, or don't even really advertise that they have replacement blades. Because, you know, we're in a disposable society and it generates more sales. They want one and done. They want you to shoot that head just one time and go buy another one. Another disadvantage is that on these mechanical heads is that sometimes they'll open up easy in your quiver, or as you're putting your arrow in and out of your quiver, moving, transporting your bow, pulling your bow up in your stand. Sometimes these mechanical heads, they have a tendency of opening up. But one tip that I've started doing, I started cutting a little bitty, small little piece of electrical tape and putting that electrical tape around that ferrule instead of using those rubber bands. I've tested it, I've shot it, and I've never had any issue with cutting these small pieces of electrical tape. And it helps. These broadheads don't open up in your quiver anymore. But a big advantage of using mechanical heads is that most are very sharp, they do a lot of damage, which aids in quick, clean kills. But on these mechanical heads, I avoid shooting those severe angled shots with mechanicals. You know, so many have that 1.5 inches, all the way up to 2.5 inches of cutting surfaces, which makes it very difficult to have a pass-through shot on a quartering deer, which leads to not having much of a blood trail because most of the blood stays in the deer. And that's the most important thing. And that's what this episode is about. I'm trying to give you information so that you can help find your deer. A lot of my staff guys use the executioner, and some of them have told me using the mechanical head, using that executioner, it makes them be more patient in the deer stand. It makes them want to take that perfect broadside shot. And another advantage of shooting these wide 2.5 inch cut mechanicals is that when bad shots occur, sometimes when you're aiming for that heart, sometimes you get too excited, those emotions get the best of us, and we pull a little bit, we tug it a little bit, we go through the liver, we may shoot a high lung, and those wider cuts is a big advantage when poor shot placement occurs.
Coming up, host Matt Moore reveals the most important thing you can do to get better performance from your broadheads. We'll be right back. Get a head start on your next trophy buck. Order stand placement advanced techniques today at Closing the Distance. Closing the Distance is made possible by Tree Limb Quivers. There's only one tree limb quiver. Sword sights, sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies, taking the elusive out of wildlife. The Stage Deer Attractant. Finally, a synthetic scent that works. Matthews Archery. And by the amazing Luminoc. Can your arrow not do this?
Today on Closing the Distance, we're talking about fixed heads versus mechanical broadheads, and it's all for one reason. I want to give you this information and give you these tips so that it'll help you find your deer. And to do this, you have to know shot placement. You have to know where you're aiming and why you're aiming. We have a video that's Shot Placement 101. It's available free of charge. You just go to our website. But all this information and stuff that I've learned over filming hunts for so many years, the biggest bullet point that I can tell you is that to shoot heavy, shoot as much bow poundage that you can, and shoot heavier grains per inch shafts. I don't care if you're a lady out there or a youth that's only shooting 40 pounds, or if you're in your 70s or 80s still pulling back your compound. Shoot heavy shafts, shoot as heavy shafts that you can. Because when you go in these pro shops, so many of them are concerned about the chronograph and how fast a bow is shooting. When I had my bow shop, I seldom, if ever, let a customer shoot his bow through the chronograph because I didn't care. I didn't want them to care. We were rigging up bows to hunt with. I shoot Carbon Express pile driver shafts. Carbon Express, they're not a sponsor. This is not any solicitation on advertising, but I really like those heavy shafts. And I know there's other shaft manufacturers on the market that have these heavier grains per inch shafts. And Carbon Express is just one of many. But I really like them because they tune to my hunting setup. They tune to my bow. And the big thing about bow tuning, you could have two bows that are exactly the same. You could have two bows that are set up at 60 pounds at 28-inch draws, but you could have a bow hunter out there that he's 5'8", 150 pounds that shoots that bow. You can have the next guy that's 5'10" and weighs 220. Those bows will not tune the same. That's what you have to keep in mind. It's that everybody's got different muscles. Everybody torques a bow different. You've got different strengths in your hands, your shoulders, your bis and tris, your chest, your back muscles, your neck muscles. Everything is different. So when you go into a pro shop, when a pro shop is setting up your bow, if they're going to shoot it through paper, you be the one that shoots it. These guys that are behind the counter, they know what they're doing. They can make bullet holes perfect because they know how to shoot a bow. You be the one that pulls the trigger. And that's the biggest tip I can give you. When you're tuning a bow, it's your bow. Don't let anybody else tune it for you. Yes, they can be there and do the adjustments, but you be the one that pulls back and pulls the trigger and shoot these heavyweight shafts. These heavier shafts is all about penetration. It's not target archery. We're trying to get as much penetration, as much knockdown power into the animal as possible. And I've told you this before, it's like if you had to drive through a brick wall, or you want to drive through it in a sports car, or do you want to drive through it in a half-ton truck? It's just that extra power that you get out of heavier arrows, and I guarantee you, that'll make a huge difference. There's a lot of really good broadheads that are on the market. I've tested so many different heads. There are a lot of really good fixed heads, beveled heads, some really good mechanical heads. You want to know what the best head is on the market? You want to know what it is? There's not one. There's no such thing as a perfect broadhead because we have our human element, because we get involved in it. We make bad shots. And because so many bow hunters, we have that type A personality. We're cocky, we're confident, we're arrogant. When a deer comes in there, we think we can take that shot. We can take that angle, even if it's quartering to you. I can drive it in there. I can make that shot. I can make that severe quartering away shot. And so many times when we tug it, we pull it, we shoot high. When every time that happens, you know what? We want to blame somebody, and we want to blame that broadhead for our poor shot placement. When you find a broadhead that you like, it builds confidence. No matter if it's a mechanical head or it's a fixed head, keep shooting what you like shooting. Work on your shot placement, work on your bow tuning. Shoot those heavier arrow shafts. And a lot of these tips, I guarantee you, it'll help you recover your deer faster. It helps you gain confidence in taking those shots. I hope you liked today's show. Let's check in with Brother Mark.
You know, I love today's show because Matt's talking about broadheads, right? We're talking about mechanical versus fixed, and I love what Matt said. Everybody wants to know the secret. What's the secret broadhead? What's the best broadhead? And I love the fact that Matt makes it clear. The secret is, there is no secret. There's no great broadhead. There's no number one broadhead. There's no one way to do it. What it really comes down to is, as always, the fundamentals. You got to choose your shot well. You got to make good decisions. You got to work on better shot placement. It all comes back down to the fundamentals and the form of really how you shoot your bow. And when you do that, it really doesn't matter which broadhead you shoot. There's so many good ones out there. And the truth of the matter is, it's really a lot like life. Everybody's looking for the secret to satisfaction, right? The secret of fulfillment in life. And the truth is, there really is no one secret. It all begins with the fundamentals and a right foundation. And that right foundation, according to the Word of God, is a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ. Now look, I'm going to say this to you, okay? As a pastor, there are a lot of people that would expect me to say that. Like it's some kind of a cure-all. That if you come to God, that you're never going to have pain, you're never going to have problem, and somehow it's the secret sauce. And the truth is, that's not real, right? Even when you come to God and have a relationship with God, there's going to be some trials, there's going to be some struggles, there's going to be some challenges and some difficulties. But here's what I'll promise you. It is the foundation that leads us to the kind of life that we really have always wanted to live. It starts with God. If you'd like to know more about a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ, just go to closingthedistance.com and click on the Moment of Truth tab.